The presence was in the west, but I was looking east. There was movement with color. And then I sat before the mirror. And in the mirror was a vortex of faintly glowing purple that absorbed blue into its center. Eventually, this turned into something like an hourglass. But in between, I saw a darker blue, forming one of those mountain-like symbols from the hieroglyphic, although I'm not saying that that is what it was. But that shape sat before me in the form about the size of the mirror. And as things grew thicker in the room, the blue blotches became dominant outside of the mirror. And the light blue was not seen in the cup, but the purple cup became more crystalline in appearance. And in the last vibrations, I saw like some mechanic thing going on with yellow and orange cutting through the scene. And I felt the analgesic shudders after a pressing upon my face. And there's something in the mirror. And I'm not saying that it's physically visible, but it's something like a pink mushroom, sort of the shade and form of the wax caps. Some might say that Brother Solomon did not turn to the Solomonic arts for the right intentions, but he was directed to work through the aspects of his psychology through them, and it enabled him to develop in various ways, both psychologically and spiritually. He found out that when you do operations regarding one entity, well, it might not be limited to that. Some operations must be done along the way to other operations. Sometimes an entity will give one instructions towards further rituals, further things like images and statues and that sort of thing to please them. They may back up a particular mythological system. Here we have this focus of Baal and Ashtoreth as at the head, but other entities, obviously. And how we regard spirits and that sort of thing, and how we treat them, will certainly affect how we experience them. If we can certainly find out beyond the layers of remnants and tricks and all that stuff, what the truth about some of these entities are. We find reference here admitting that the jinn are of different paths. Some of these paths are ones that are unknown to us. And the way this thing is phrased in particular, it's very interesting that, you know, because a lot of people try to claim it's like, oh no, the jinn were really just the Jews, and it's like, no. That sounds like almost some sort of neo-Nazi thing, that when the Bible talks about Satan, it's really just talking about the Jews, and it's like, no, that's not what it's saying, and that's not what the Islamic sources are saying. But you know, particularly people that come from the outside have tried to say these sorts of things, right? And we see some inserts among the notes that back up their own sort of theological thinking. And certainly the entities will work upon a framework that you kind of set forth. Of course, they have their own choices. I try to present my knowledge and my experience and all that, but I try to connect people to sources that would be better mentors than myself, because I don't think that it's about my personal directing people. Although I would say that, you know, Runyon is trying to help people find their own will. There are orders that one may want to follow other than just going through the systems in order, because certain spots along the way might require more of you than a beginning approach. So you might want to do some other things. And that's why in their system, they certainly want to build you up on techniques. Most Sufi orders kind of ask you to do the basic things and do some minor retreats and that stuff like that before they put you through whole systems that take years and all sorts of stuff, and load you down with practices when you honestly aren't at the point where doing any more than 17 minutes a day, or whatever the case may be, you know, would come easy to you. There is a phrase in here that, you know, talks about the active and the passive, and that, well, there's a time for each, but certainly we gotta act to put ourselves on a point where we can accomplish some of these things. These sorts of operations can help you figure out what they are in other systems, and there are some interesting illustrations and stuff like this. I see a correlation between the Eckankar doctrine about Jesus and other such ascended masters that aren't officially part of that system, and a more generalistic approach to here, that, you know, if we limit ourselves through some savior type individual or some enlightened one, and it's like, oh, well, we don't have to reach that stage in this life. It's like, maybe you don't, but if you believe in reincarnation and you believe you have to do it over again, it's like, see, so you're held back. Now, some of these beings may be held back themselves, but, it certainly limits one in that approach. Sometimes something's going to be surprising, but it can actually teach you a lesson that you are ready for. Sometimes people have to do something in regards to the group working that doesn't allow them the focus to have the experience that they would otherwise have, but overall, this is how things operate. Like, I have seen rituals where something occurs where somebody needs to be replaced as the operator or whatever, and so there's movement that if you don't know what's going on, it wouldn't be expected, but it works.